but there is an overall feel that I get from a person. And then I'm always looking at specifics.
Have you ever wished you could look at someone and instantly know what truly drives them? Beyond the surface, smiles and polite words, what if you could see the hidden forces shaping their thoughts and actions? The kind of understanding that pierces through masks and defenses, revealing the real person beneath? Here are 17 psychological truths to read anyone instantly. Number 1 truth: everyone is driven by their own will to power. Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher often misunderstood as just a critic of morality, left behind profound insights into human nature and the mind's secret workings. His reflections go far beyond philosophy. They touch the core of psychology, perception, and human interaction. These truths are not mere observations. They are keys to decoding people, to recognizing what they hide even from themselves. If you've ever felt lost in social situations or confused by someone's behavior, these lessons will give you tools to navigate with confidence. Whether it's in personal relationships, business, or simply understanding the world around you, mastering these truths changes everything. One of Nietzsche's deepest psychological truths is that everyone carries within them a will to power. This is not about domination over others in the crude sense, but a fundamental urge to assert, grow, overcome challenges, and express their unique essence. This force shapes thoughts, decisions, and actions, even when people themselves are unaware of it. People wear many faces to protect this inner fire, but it always pulses beneath. Recognizing this helps us see why some act defensively while others seek control or admiration. When you meet someone, look beyond their surface behavior and try to sense this energy. Are they pushing forward with quiet determination, or are they resisting change out of fear? Sometimes the will to power reveals itself as ambition, other times as stubbornness or defiance. Understanding this helps you see why people behave the way they do, not as random acts but as expressions of this deep driving urge. This truth opens a powerful lens through which human behavior becomes far less confusing and far more predictable. On the surface, people often present themselves as humble, altruistic, or indifferent to power. But if you pay close attention, their actions often reveal a deeper unconscious pull toward growth, recognition, and control. In Friedrich Nietzsche words, "Where I found a living creature, there I found will to power, even in the will of the servant." This idea suggests that even the most submissive or self-effacing individuals may still be playing power games in subtle ways, through manipulation, passive resistance, or emotional control. Once you understand this, you begin to see past words and appearances. You start to recognize that beneath most conflicts, alliances, and ambitions lies this invisible current of willpower. It's not always malicious, it's simply the way life expresses itself. Carl Jung expanded on this when he observed that most people are unaware of the forces driving them. They act out unconscious patterns, believing they are making rational choices. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, Jung warned. Recognizing the will to power in others means you stop taking their actions personally. You no longer get entangled in their dramas because you see the deeper script running underneath their behavior. By learning to detect this drive in your relationships, workplaces, and even within yourself, you can navigate life with more clarity. You predict actions more accurately, avoid being blindsided by hidden agendas, and protect your energy from those who would unconsciously drain it in their quest for control. This doesn't make you cynical, it makes you aware. Awareness is what gives you the power to respond instead of react, to choose your own position rather than be swept up in someone else's game. Number 2. Truth. People live in contradictions, and these contradictions reveal their true selves. Humans are complex beings, full of contradictions that often baffle observers. Someone might be kind in one moment and harsh the next, confident but secretly insecure, generous yet guarded. Nietzsche understood that these opposing traits do not cancel each other out but coexist, forming the full picture of a person's psyche. When you learn to see these contradictions, not as flaws but as keys, you begin to understand the quiet dance happening inside every person. In Taoist philosophy, there is a teaching about yin and yang, the two forces of life that seem opposite but are deeply connected. Light cannot exist without shadows, and even in the darkest night, there is the faint promise of dawn. In the same way, people often carry both strength and fragility within them. Someone's anger might look like power at first, but if you look closer, it could be a shield hiding pain or fear. Their coldness might not mean they don't care. It could be their way of protecting a deep longing to be accepted. This idea shows us that humans are not simple or one-sided. Just like a river appears calm on the surface but hides strong currents below, people carry layers of emotion, beliefs, and experiences that shape how they act. In Buddhist teachings, there is also the story of the lotus flower. It grows in muddy water, yet it blooms pure and beautiful above the surface. In the same way, a person's flaws or contradictions may be the mud from which their true self is trying to grow. Their stubbornness might come from having to survive in a world that often misunderstands them. Their overconfidence might hide an inner voice whispering that they are not enough. When you look at others this way, you stop judging them quickly. Instead, you start listening with your heart. You begin to ask, what is this person really trying to protect? What pain or longing are they carrying under this mask? This doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but it allows you to understand it and respond wisely. Recognizing these hidden layers can also help you avoid being manipulated by appearances. Someone who seems tough may actually crave reassurance, while someone who seems carefree may be carrying burdens too heavy to share. Seeing contradictions in others is also a mirror to see your own. The anger you feel might actually be sadness in disguise. Your fear of rejection might really be a longing for deep connection. As you uncover these layers within yourself, you become more compassionate towards others too. You realize everyone is fighting a silent battle within, balancing their light and shadows like the yin-yang symbol itself. The challenge is that these contradictions are often hidden beneath layers of social conditioning or self-deception. You have to watch for small tells, slight changes in tone, hesitation before a response, inconsistent body language. These reveal when someone is wrestling with opposing forces inside them. When you embrace this truth, you stop seeking simple answers and become comfortable with complexity. You learn that people's inner conflicts are what make them human, and that understanding this makes you a sharper observer and more compassionate listener. Number 3 truth: people often project their own fears and desires onto others. One of the most powerful ways people reveal themselves is through projection. When someone accuses another of being selfish, dishonest, or insecure, it often reflects qualities they struggle with themselves. Projection is a defense mechanism that shifts inner conflicts outward, allowing a person to avoid facing uncomfortable truths within. When you observe this, you realize that arguments and judgments aren't just about the surface issue. They are echoes of the person's internal world. This means that by listening carefully to what people criticize or praise in others, you gain insight into their own hidden fears and wishes. Learning to spot projection helps you avoid taking things personally. If someone lashes out or seems unfair, it may say more about their inner struggles than about you. This awareness also empowers you to respond with empathy or detachment, rather than reacting emotionally. The idea of projection can be hard to see at first, because it feels so natural to assume what we see in others is real. But as the philosopher Carl Jung explained, projection happens when we take parts of ourselves, our fears, insecurities, or desires, and place them on other people without realizing it. It's like holding up a mirror but thinking you're looking through a window. When you begin to notice projection, the world looks different. You see that people often aren't responding to reality as it is. They're responding to the shadows inside them. Someone's harsh judgment may not really be about you. It could be about the parts of themselves they dislike but can't yet face. Their anger might not mean you've done something wrong. It might be their own pain spilling over. Jung called this meeting your shadow. It means noticing that we all have hidden sides we don't want to admit, and until we do, we're likely to see those hidden parts in others instead. Once you understand this, you stop taking everything personally. You see the layers beneath what people say and do. You realize they are wrestling with inner struggles they may not even know exist, and this shapes how they see the world. Number 4. Truth. Everyone has a mask, but the shadow always shows through. Nietzsche believed that each person wears a mask, a persona designed to fit social expectations or protect their vulnerabilities. This mask can seem charming, strong, or flawless, but it is never the whole truth. Beneath it lies the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves that we keep secret, sometimes even from our own awareness. Psychologists have studied this idea too. In the 1997 study by John and Robbins on the Big Five personality traits and self-presentation, they found that people often adjust how they show up in the world to match what they think others want to see. This isn't always fake, it's a way of protecting the self. But it also means that parts of us stay hidden, even from ourselves. When we avoid these hidden parts, they can quietly influence how we think and behave. We might criticize traits in others that we actually fear in ourselves, or we might overcompensate, acting overly confident to cover up feelings of insecurity. The study suggests that self-awareness, peeking behind the mask, helps us understand why we act the way we do, and can make our relationships more authentic. The shadow might express itself through moments of anger, sudden withdrawal, or unexpected reactions. It slips out in dreams, jokes, or slips of the tongue. By watching for these moments, you can glimpse the true nature of a person beyond their polished exterior. Recognizing the mask and shadow dynamic gives you a deeper understanding of human complexity. It teaches you that what people show you is often a carefully constructed image, and the real story lies in the subtle signs they cannot fully control. This truth invites patience and careful observation. Instead of accepting first impressions, you learn to look for what hides beneath, making you a more insightful and discerning reader of people. Number 5. Truth. People crave certainty, even in a chaotic world. Human beings often create intricate systems of belief, religions, philosophies, even personal narratives, not because these systems are absolutely true, but because they help us cope with the chaos of existence. Life can feel overwhelming and uncertain, and so we reach for ideas that give us structure, safety, and meaning. These beliefs act like a shield against the unknown. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this as a subtle form of self-deception. In The Gay Science, he wrote about how people often cling to truths, not out of a love for reality, but out of fear. He argued that many moral codes and religious systems are not discoveries of truth, but inventions that keep us from facing life's unsettling questions. For Nietzsche, the willingness to look directly at the abyss of existence, without leaning on comforting illusions, was a rare kind of strength. To truly understand someone, pay attention to how they handle uncertainty. The person who clings tightly to their truth may not be seeking reality at all, they may be seeking refuge. This isn't a sign of weakness, it's deeply human, but it does reveal how much energy we spend avoiding the unknown. We see this even in small, everyday ways. A person might insist they are always right, because admitting doubt feels too vulnerable. Another might hold tightly to a belief system because it gives them identity and purpose. Nietzsche would say these are masks we wear, protecting us from the rawness of existence. Yet Nietzsche did not suggest we throw away all beliefs. Instead, he called for the courage to create meaning for ourselves, to build values and truths consciously, rather than inherit them blindly. This is not an easy path. It requires us to stand in the uncertainty for a while, to question what we've been told, and to discover who we really are beneath the borrowed ideas. In the end, the measure of a person is not how firmly they hold to a truth, but how honestly they can face the possibility that truth itself is fragile. The one who can embrace uncertainty without being destroyed by it has, in Nietzsche's eyes, taken the first step toward true freedom. Number 6. Truth. Resentment shapes more lives than ambition does. Many people live their lives not by following their true desires, but by reacting to others. They often carry a quiet bitterness toward those who seem freer, happier, or more powerful. Instead of asking what they really want, they spend their energy pulling others down. Friedrich Nietzsche called this resentment, a deep, hidden envy that twists the soul and changes how people see the world. This resentment doesn't always look like jealousy on the surface. It can appear as constant criticism or moral preaching. A person might say, those people are selfish, or that's wrong, not because they care about truth or justice, but because they are secretly longing for the freedom or power they see in others. It's a way of coping with their own unfulfilled desires by pretending they are above them. Søren Kierkegaard, another philosopher, noticed something similar. He spoke of despair as the condition of not being your true self. For Kierkegaard, people often avoid their real longings because facing them feels too risky or painful. So instead, they build a false self and hide behind it, judging others to distract from their own inner emptiness. To see this clearly in someone requires looking beyond their words. If a person criticizes others endlessly or acts overly righteous, it may not be about the people they're judging at all. It often reflects their own inner conflict, a longing they have buried so deep they can't admit it even to themselves. This doesn't mean we should blame or hate them. In fact, noticing this pattern can make us more compassionate. We begin to see that behind bitterness is often pain. Behind harshness is often a sense of feeling small or powerless. To understand this is to pierce through the surface and witness the emotions driving their behavior. But we must also be honest with ourselves. How often do we do the same thing? How often do we criticize what we secretly wish we could have or do? Nietzsche believed that only by confronting these uncomfortable truths in ourselves can we begin to live with real freedom, free from envy, free from bitterness, and free to become who we truly are. Number 7. Truth. People distract themselves from their inner emptiness with endless activity. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that many people are terrified of being alone with their own thoughts because it forces them to face the emptiness inside, the inner void. To escape this, they fill their days with busyness, constant entertainment, and shallow connections. They convince themselves they are being productive, but often this is just a way to avoid silence and stillness. This avoidance is not new. Blaise Pascal, a philosopher from the 1600s, wrote that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Pascal believed that distraction was our way of escaping the discomfort of looking inward. To sit in stillness means to confront our fears, our longings, and the fact that life does not hand us easy answers. Modern psychology supports this insight. A study by Wilson et al., 2014, at the University of Virginia, found that many people would rather give themselves mild electric shocks than be alone with their thoughts for even 15 minutes. The researchers concluded that we are deeply uncomfortable with unstructured mental time and will choose almost any distraction over self-reflection. If you pay attention, you'll see how much of what people call hard work or being busy is often a way to avoid their own minds. Endless scrolling, packed schedules, and even over-socializing can keep us from hearing the quiet questions that rise in stillness. Who am I? What do I really want? What does this all mean? To read someone deeply, look for what they avoid when left alone. The person who is always surrounded by noise may be running from an inner silence they fear. The one who mocks solitude or calls it boring might secretly be afraid of meeting themselves without distractions. True strength comes from the willingness to face the void and build meaning for yourself. Only when we stop running from stillness can we discover what's really inside and begin to live in a way that feels real and free. Number 8. Truth. People are influenced by their past, even when they deny it. A person's history, childhood experiences, traumas, successes, and failures shapes their present self in ways they might not fully recognize or admit. Much of what we do in the present is influenced by the past, even if we think we've left it behind. Our fears, habits, and desires often grow from seeds planted long ago. Friedrich Nietzsche understood that the past is a powerful, invisible force. He believed that people carry their history within them like a shadow, guiding their thoughts and actions in ways they don't always see. This is why someone might repeat the same mistakes in relationships, or shy away from opportunities that could help them grow. It's not weakness, but the weight of old patterns quietly at work. Modern psychology supports this idea. A famous study by Bessel van der Kolk, author of The Body Keeps the Score, shows how trauma and early experiences leave imprints on the brain and body, influencing behavior for years to come. Even when people are not consciously thinking about the past, it can live on in their reactions, fears, and choices. If you watch closely, you'll notice clues about a person's past in what they say, how they act, and especially in what they avoid. A person who fears rejection may seem distant in relationships. Someone who grew up feeling unsafe might crave control in every situation. These patterns are not random. They are echoes of the lives they have lived. Seeing this can change the way we interpret others. Instead of meeting their flaws with anger or judgment, we begin to respond with compassion. When we understand that each person carries wounds as well as wisdom, we stop expecting perfection and start seeing the human story behind their behaviour. True understanding requires us to look beyond the surface and honour the struggles that shaped someone. To read a person deeply is to remember they are not only what they do today, but also the sum of the battles they fought, the pain they've endured, and the lessons they are still learning. Number 9. Truth. The most dangerous people are those who hide their true intentions. Deception is one of the most common human tactics, not just in open lies, but in the quiet, subtle ways people hide their real motives. Often, people wear masks to gain an advantage, manipulate others, or even protect themselves from being hurt. A person who seems agreeable but behaves otherwise, or who constantly changes their story, can be difficult to read. Their true intentions are buried under layers of performance. In many traditions, this human tendency has been observed for centuries. In Zen Buddhism, there is a parable of a man who points at the moon to show others its beauty. But instead of looking at the moon, people stare at his finger. The lesson is simple. Don't get distracted by appearances or gestures. Focus on what lies beyond them. In the same way, when someone acts in ways that seem confusing or contradictory, don't be fooled by their surface behaviour. Look deeper to find what's really driving them. Detecting hidden agendas requires more than logic. It calls for patience and quiet observation. Watch how their words match their actions. Pay attention to body language, tone of voice, and emotional cues. Often, the truth leaks out in small inconsistencies: a forced smile, a story that doesn't align, or a sense of emotional disconnect that suggests something is off. Modern psychology supports this idea. Research on micro-expressions by psychologist Paul Ekman shows that people's hidden emotions often flash across their faces in tiny, involuntary movements before they regain control. These subtle cues can reveal anger, fear, or contempt, even when someone is trying to appear calm and pleasant. Training yourself to notice these signs sharpens your intuition. This truth teaches you to stay alert and trust your instincts when something doesn't add up. While not every inconsistency means manipulation, people are often messy and conflicted. It is wise to listen to that inner voice that whispers, "Something feels wrong." The world is full of masks, and learning to see beyond them is part of growing wise. It doesn't mean becoming suspicious of everyone, but it does mean moving through life with open eyes and a quiet awareness of the games people sometimes play. Number 10. Truth. People are drawn to power, but fear true freedom. Friedrich Nietzsche observed a deep paradox in human nature. We crave control and influence because they make us feel secure and important, yet we fear the weight of true freedom. Power is attractive. It seems to promise respect, safety, and the ability to shape our own lives. But real freedom means taking full responsibility for our choices, with no one else to blame, no comforting rules to hide behind. For many, this is terrifying. In Sufi tradition, there is a parable of a bird in a cage. The bird dreams of flying freely but hesitates to leave the cage when the door is opened. Outside lies the sky and the wind, endless possibility. But outside there is also no food placed in a dish, no walls for protection. The bird realizes that freedom means uncertainty and risk. Many people are like that bird. They long for autonomy but cling to familiar structures because responsibility feels too heavy. When you observe someone closely, you may notice this same inner conflict. They might seek approval or dominance, acting as if they want to lead, yet avoid situations where they must fully own their decisions. They may crave power but secretly prefer systems that tell them what to do so they never have to face the anxiety of complete freedom. Nietzsche would say this reveals whether a person has the courage to become their higher self, or whether they remain in the comfort of their herd. Psychology echoes this idea. Erich Fromm, in his book Escape from Freedom, explained that many people unconsciously avoid freedom because it comes with the burden of self-direction. Instead, they seek authority figures, traditions, or social rules to carry that weight for them. Fromm called this the fear of freedom, a subtle force that shapes human behavior and relationships. When you understand this hidden conflict, you can see beyond people's surface ambitions. What looks like confidence may mask fear. What seems like ambition might actually be a desire for safety disguised as drive. Recognizing this doesn't make you cynical, it makes you compassionate. You see that many behaviors are not simply about power or weakness, but about this deep human struggle between freedom and fear. The challenge is not only to understand this in others, but also in ourselves. Do we truly want freedom, or do we just like the idea of it? Answering that question honestly is the first step toward living with courage and authenticity. Number 11. Truth. Genuine strength comes from embracing vulnerability. One of Nietzsche's most profound insights is that real strength is not about hiding weaknesses, but in facing them openly. Many people assume that strength means never showing doubt, pain, or fear. They wear masks of confidence to protect themselves and impress others. Yet true psychological power lives in vulnerability, the ability to remain authentic even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher, explored a similar idea in his writings about despair and selfhood. He believed that becoming a true self requires honesty about one's limitations and fears. Those who deny their struggles, Kierkegaard warned, live in a kind of spiritual sickness. In contrast, those who embrace their fragility begin to grow stronger because they are no longer running from themselves. Observing how someone handles vulnerability offers deep insight into their character. Some shut down when faced with emotional exposure, withdrawing into silence or anger. Others lash out, attacking those who get too close to their soft spots. But there are those rare people who lean into discomfort, reflect on it, and use it as a chance to grow. This difference reveals how deeply a person knows themselves and how resilient they truly are. Modern psychology reflects this ancient wisdom. Research by Brené Brown on vulnerability shows that people who embrace their imperfections and share them honestly tend to have healthier relationships and greater emotional resilience. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is a sign of courage and connection. Those who reject it often struggle silently, trapped behind walls they built to feel safe. When you begin to notice these patterns, you start seeing past the masks. The ones who seem invulnerable, always in control, never shaken, often carry the most fragile hearts. And those who admit their fears and doubts are often far stronger than they appear because they have made peace with being human. This awareness helps you value authenticity in yourself and others. It teaches you that courage is not about perfection, but about showing up fully, even with all your cracks and flaws. And it reminds you that every mask of invulnerability hides a soul yearning to be seen and accepted. Number 12. Truth. People repeat their mistakes until they learn their lesson. Human beings are often trapped in invisible patterns, cycles of thought, emotion, and behavior that repeat over and over. These patterns can feel like fate, but they are usually habits formed long ago, running in the background of our lives. Unless a person confronts and understands these unconscious loops, they are likely to keep making the same mistakes, no matter how hard they try to move forward. This idea echoes ancient wisdom too. In Hindu philosophy, there is the concept of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, driven by karma and unlearned lessons. A well-known parable describes a man walking down a street. He falls into a deep hole because he isn't paying attention. The next day, he walks down the same street and falls in again. On the third day, he starts to notice the hole but still trips and falls. Only later does he finally walk a different way. The story teaches that patterns will repeat until awareness and change take root. You can see these cycles in the lives of others if you watch closely. A person might keep choosing similar partners who hurt them, or they might get into the same kinds of arguments at every job. Emotional reactions often reveal these loops too. Explosive anger, chronic avoidance, or endless people-pleasing can all point to deeper lessons left unresolved. Modern psychology has studied this as well. Research on schema therapy by Jeffrey Young shows how early life experiences create schemas, or mental blueprints, that shape our later relationships and decisions. Left unexamined, these schemas pull us toward familiar situations, even painful ones, because the brain craves what it knows, not necessarily what is good for us. Understanding this truth invites both compassion and caution. It teaches you to be patient with others' flaws, knowing how hard it is to break free from deep-seated patterns. But it also reminds you not to get pulled into someone else's destructive loops. Protecting your own peace sometimes means stepping back and letting others face their own cycles. It also challenges you to reflect on your own life. Which mistakes do you keep repeating? Which conflicts or fears seem to follow you? These repetitions are not punishments. They are clues pointing to places within yourself that are asking for healing and growth. Number 13. Truth. People often hide their deepest desires behind lies. People often protect themselves by creating false narratives, not just for others, but for themselves. These stories can cover their true intentions, their painful memories, or even the life they secretly long for. Instead of admitting their deepest wishes, people often hide behind socially acceptable or convenient tales, afraid of being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. This tendency has been explored in many traditions. In Buddhist teaching, there is a parable of a man running from a tiger. He stumbles upon a vine and clings to it over a cliff, trying to avoid both the tiger above and the rocks below. While hanging there, he sees a strawberry and eats it, telling himself all is well. The story reminds us how people often distract themselves or invent comforting stories to avoid facing fear and reality head-on. If you watch and listen closely, you can start noticing these hidden layers in people. Pay attention to what someone avoids, the subjects they change quickly, or the little slips in their words. Often, these gaps and hesitations reveal more than their spoken stories. Behind them lies a longing, fear, or truth they haven't yet found the courage to share, even with themselves. Modern psychology supports this idea. Research on cognitive dissonance by Leon Festinger shows how people create self-justifying narratives to reduce the discomfort between their actions and their true feelings. These internal lies act as shields, keeping them from the pain of seeing their own contradictions clearly. Recognizing this teaches you to listen with more care, not only to words but also to silences, body language, and emotional undertones. You begin to notice that what's left unsaid often carries more weight than what is spoken. This awareness invites compassion too. When you see the walls people build, you understand they are not necessarily being malicious. They are protecting tender parts of themselves. Honesty, both with others and with oneself, requires immense courage. The next time you sense a false story, instead of reacting with frustration, you might pause and wonder, what is this person afraid of? What truth feels too heavy for them to hold? This shift in perspective changes how deeply you connect with others and yourself. Number 14. Truth. The crowd thinks differently than the individual. One of Nietzsche's core insights was that people often lose touch with their true selves in groups. Surrounded by others, they adopt the beliefs, fears, and desires of the collective without even realizing it. The crowd rewards conformity, and so individuals suppress their unique thoughts and feelings to fit in. What begins as a survival instinct can become a habit that erases their authenticity. This wisdom echoes ancient traditions. In Taoist philosophy, there is a parable about a man who loved dragons. He decorated his home with dragon paintings and statues, praising them constantly. One day, a real dragon heard about him and flew down to visit. But when the man saw the living dragon, he panicked and ran away. The story warns us about people who claim to seek truth or authenticity, yet flee when confronted with its raw, untamed reality. In groups, many people act the same way. They talk about freedom and individuality, but shy away from expressing it when it counts. If you observe someone closely, notice how they behave in groups versus when they are alone. Do they speak their mind freely, or do they mirror the opinions and emotions of those around them? Are their convictions steady, or do they shift to gain approval? This contrast reveals where their authentic self ends and their social performance begins. Modern psychology supports this idea. The classic Asch conformity experiments showed how easily people will agree with a group's wrong answer rather than stand alone with the truth. Even when their senses told them otherwise, participants often doubted themselves to avoid social rejection. This tendency shows how the crowd's influence can dull individual intuition and critical thinking. Understanding this helps you develop sharper awareness in reading people. When you sense someone's words and actions changing to match the group, you see that they might be performing rather than revealing their real thoughts. This truth also serves as a warning to yourself. Staying grounded in your own values requires courage and self-reflection. The influence of the crowd can be subtle and powerful. It can blind us to what we truly believe and feel. Only by stepping back and questioning, is this really me, or am I blending in to be safe? Can we protect our intuition and reclaim our authentic voice? Number 15. Truth. People crave meaning and will invent it. if it doesn't exist. People have an insatiable need to make sense of the chaos around them. When life feels random or overwhelming, they often create stories, beliefs, or systems to give themselves a sense of purpose and control. These narratives act as anchors in the storm, offering comfort against uncertainty. This drive for meaning is so powerful that it shapes entire cultures, religions, and even the quiet choices people make in their daily lives. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and philosopher, wrote about this in Man's Search for Meaning. He observed that even in the darkest situations, like his time in Nazi concentration camps, people survived not because of strength or luck alone, but because they found a reason to keep living. Frankl believed that the search for meaning is not just a part of life, it is life itself. Without it, people feel lost and empty, no matter how safe or successful they seem. To understand someone deeply, notice what they hold on to when everything else falls apart. Observe how they talk about failure, loss, or uncertainty. Some people double down on their beliefs, becoming rigid and defensive. Others open up and search for new meaning, even if it's uncomfortable. These reactions reveal not just their stories, but the fears and hopes buried beneath them. Seeing this in others can also turn the mirror inward. What do you cling to when life shakes your foundations? Which stories have you told yourself to make sense of pain, joy, and the unknown? These questions invite not judgment, but curiosity, and perhaps the courage to rewrite the parts of your narrative that no longer serve you. Number 16. Truth. People are driven more by fear than by desire. Human behavior is often driven not by the desire to gain, but by the fear of losing or avoiding pain. Fear acts as a powerful and quiet force, shaping decisions, relationships, and even how people see themselves. It influences career paths, friendships, and even the masks people wear in daily life. The choices that seem bold on the surface are often rooted in an attempt to avoid discomfort or loss. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, spoke of this when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He believed fear distorts perception and binds people to a cautious, limited existence. Many spend their lives trying to avoid failure, rejection, or uncertainty, without realizing how much these fears hold them back from living fully. If you watch someone carefully, you begin to see how fear operates beneath their surface actions and words. The hesitation in their voice, the quick deflection from certain topics, or the defensive anger when they feel exposed, all are signs of inner fears at work. Instead of taking their stated desires at face value, you start to sense what they are really trying to protect themselves from. This understanding invites a gentler perspective. Rather than meeting others with frustration or judgment, you approach them with curiosity and patience. Fear can imprison as much as it can motivate, and recognizing this truth helps you navigate relationships and interactions with greater insight and compassion, not just for others, but also for yourself. Number 17. Truth. Most people fear freedom more than they fear oppression. While many speak of wanting liberation and independence, the reality is that freedom comes with responsibility, and that terrifies most people. True freedom means making your own choices and owning the consequences fully, with no one else to blame. For many, it feels safer to follow rules, traditions, or authority figures than to face the vast, dizzying possibilities of a self-determined life. Erich Fromm, in his book Escape from Freedom, explored this same tension. He observed that people often fear freedom because it forces them to confront their own uncertainty and isolation. Instead of embracing it, they run back to systems that offer security and clear expectations, even if it means giving up parts of their autonomy. To Fromm, this is why many willingly submit to authority. They prefer the comfort of being led to the burden of leading themselves. If you pay attention, you can see this pattern in everyday life. When people are given too many options, they often retreat into routines, or let others decide for them. Even those who reject authority in one area may cling to it in another, choosing careers, relationships, or beliefs that feel safe rather than truly their own. Freedom sounds beautiful in theory, but in practice, it requires a strength many are reluctant to cultivate. This insight encourages you to look more deeply, not only at others but at yourself. Where are you truly free, and where are you simply conforming to avoid uncertainty? Answering this honestly is the first step toward a life shaped by choice rather than fear. Together, these final truths complete a portrait of human psychology that is nuanced, raw, and deeply revealing. Nietzsche's insights push you beyond surface appearances into a realm where fear, hidden desires, contradictions, and subtle power struggles govern much of what we call personality. By mastering these lessons, you sharpen your ability to read anyone instantly, not through guesswork, but through profound psychological understanding. This is the kind of knowledge that changes how you see the world and yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.